Scott, are you going to do a roll? I believe I have a quorum. You're going to do a roll call for us?
You bet.
Thank you.
Representing the State Treasurer, Mr. Juarez.
Steve Juarez, representing State Treasurer here.
Ms. Higa.
Here.
Ms. Yamamoto.
Here.
Ms. Dillon.
Here.
Representing the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Ms. Umat.
Here.
Chairperson Hendricks, you have a quorum.
Excellent. Thanks, Scott. The first item is approval of the committee agenda.
So moved. Second.
Thanks. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Excellent. All right. And then item 2 is approval of our minutes from back in November. If you can remember that far back.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you. So our minutes have been approved. And we are skipping item 3, right, Andrew?
Yep.
So so if you remember, Dana mentioned this yesterday, item 3 is going to come back to us at another time. So we are on to Andrew and Christine. Welcome, Christine Preseno. Employer audit findings. I love talking about employer audit findings.
Well, good morning. I'm going to let Christine go ahead and start the presentation.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. I'm very excited to be here to share with you how we support our employers, not just when they have audit findings, but when they have any needs, any necessary information they need in order to report. So I'm excited to share with you actually how we provide a consultative approach to employer service. As you see, we have actually 6 teams that actually have day-to-day contact with our employers. And what I'd like to do is go through each of those teams and share with you what they do, and then how we partner together in order to resolve issues when there is an audit finding. So the first team I'd like to share with you is our member account services reporting unit. It's the employer services teams. And what we do is we provide a single point of contact for our employers. And so every county office of education and all of our 13 direct reporters have a single contact that they contact in order to ask questions for timely reporting. And of course, they are responsible for the reporting of over 1,700 employers and districts within the state of California. And actually, they are responsible for providing over 950,000 lines of data to us on a monthly basis, which culminates to over 11 million lines in a year. And this team is responsible for the day-to-day contact. And so I'm excited to share with you that we, so far this fiscal year, have answered over 12,000 inquiries from our employers so far. And they do that via email. They do a lot of reporting through our secure employer website portal, where they help them to get past the edits when we suspect errors and to assist them in anything that they need in order to give us the timely reporting. Sure.
About this, just so I understand how it works, because I think it's so critical for us to be providing the support to our employers. So when we communicate, so when our when Members Account Services communicates to districts have a single point of contact, or we have a single point of contact, or how does that work?
So the report sources, the county offices of education and those that report directly to us are responsible for the monthly reporting. Mm-hmm. So it's the counties and those direct reports that have the single point of contact.
Okay.
So it varies.
We've identified each of those
Yes.
boxes for every single county office and the direct reports.
Yes, and it varies from a report source to report source. Some of them do have their districts contacting us directly. Others prefer to have the contact go through their offices. So we provide both levels of service.
Because the first thing I think of is, again, looking at some of our districts, our HR departments and retirement units. I mean, it's like we're hiring 10 new, staff this month, and it just seems like there's a lot of. So how do we make sure SPOCs are current, I guess, and.
Do you mean in the knowledge of?
Yeah, well, both current and then the people are who they say they are.
Oh, I see.
With turnover and things like that.
Right, so a couple of different things that happen. Each of the report sources have a single email that they email into. And so we're able to manage the contacts that way. We know where they're coming from, and we validate through, later in our slides, I'll show you how we have a systems team that supports their access to our systems. So we're able to validate it that way. And then we have main contacts at the sources that are responsible for ensuring we have the updated contact information at each of the employers.
Excellent, great.
Okay. Next is the contribution team. Now, this team actually sits in our financial services division, and we have a very close partnership with them, and I'd like to just thank Robin personally of all that she's taught me and for her partnership. She's been an incredible source of information, and I will just say that from myself and my staff that her absence will definitely be felt. But this team actually is responsible for the cash. So where Member Account Services is responsible for
I like that.
the data,
cash.
the data
The money.
coming in for our members, they are responsible for taking the cash that's sent into us and actually balancing it against the data that we are facilitating. They also do a lot of trend analysis. They check the contributions for reasonableness, and they are monitoring for when any employer data that comes in that has a benefit impact. And then they work with our benefit shops to do the follow-up. Next is that support team I was mentioning. So the secure employer website is the portal that the employers sign into in order to report. And so our systems team provides the access to that system. They do monitoring for use, and we do annual security checks to ensure that we're wiping away all those users that have turned over and no longer need access. And then whenever we do enhancements to our systems, they do the testing. They make sure that that system is up and available as often as possible. And then they do any data resolution. So sometimes that single point of contact and the employer are having difficulty getting those reports in. And if it's a technology issue, then this is the first point of escalation. And they work together to ensure that we can actually get those reports in.
Andrew, with Pension Solution, I assume all these mechanisms that Christine's talking about are going to be updated and, right, Ashish is bobbing his head and smiling, so I'm saying yes, okay, great. Because I just think, it just seems like that's a huge concern I have is just turnover, accuracy, that the right people are getting the right information and nobody else is getting that access to that information. So
Yeah, Christine is also heavily involved in the Pension Solution Project, representing the employer functionality.
good, okay.
Yeah, and this team is actually very much involved in the testing of that system. We've done a lot of work in facilitating with the employers, looking for those pain points and trying to make sure that whatever system that we design, that it's actually going to be even better than what we're already providing. So next we have our employer communication and legislation team. So this team is actually responsible for our SO announcements. So when our employers sign into our portal, they will immediately see an announcement screen. And this team is responsible for updating that announcement screen and making sure that if we have to get a message out to the entire employer community, that's where they know where to go and look. Excuse me. And in addition, they do the communications for any legislation implementation. So sometimes you'll see the communications go out to the employer. We call them directives. It actually gives them instruction on how to implement any new ways of reporting, any new legislation changes that change what they need to do in order to get the data into us.
And Christine, do we have with the SEW, do we have a way to archive all of that, all those, I thought we don't call them circulars or whatever, directives.
Yes.
So do we have a way of cataloging the directives so that an employer can go back and say, CalSTRS sent me something a year ago, and they can look at those?
Absolutely. Yes, and they use it quite frequently, and it is searchable.
And we do issue both circulars and directives.
Yes. The other staff on this team is responsible, it's our data steward, and she is the one that collects all of the data that provides us what we need in order to report to our executive team on how we're doing on production and to our board measures that are reported to you.
Okay, great.
Next, we have our Mass Audit Support Team, and we call this the Little A Audits Team because they partner with our Big A Audits, our Larry Jensen's team, when there has been an employer audit. So once there has been an audit, final audit report issued, it is sent both to the employer and to this team, and this team's major responsibility is the follow-up with that employer. So they follow up with the employer to receive the corrections for the individuals named in the audit. And also when it is suspected that there is a finding that might be systemic to a broader population within that employer, this team facilitates that with the employer to get the employer to provide us the listing of the other impacted members within the population. And then what they do while they're facilitating that conversation with the employers, they do another analysis of any reporting that has happened recently. They actually reach out to that single point of contact and take a review of any inquiries that have been made so that we can look and see what edits they're hitting. So maybe when we get to the end of their follow-up, they actually provide a training recommendation. So I believe the ask of this committee was to share what happens when there is an audit finding and how do we actually educate the employer to try to reduce the number of errors that are being made. So once the training recommendations are put together, that is shared with our mass training team, who is responsible for creating a community of employers. So we often find that if there is a systemic issue suspected, that they're probably making that error not just at that one employer, but within that employer's resource. So our training team builds a community of employers to try to find greater compliance and consistency of understanding of what our rules and law and whatever it is that we need them to do in order to report. And so this training team goes out into the field, they do webinars, they do conference calls, and when we are going out into the field or when we're doing webinars, we actually reach out to all of the employers in the region and offer space, if it's available, to actually attend those training sessions with us. And the types of training that we offer, this is a short list of what we do offer, but we, of course, train them how to use the SO portal. Membership and credible compensation is a huge topic because, as Sharon's mentioned, some of those payroll staff turn over, and so making sure that they have the understanding from when they're getting that first line of data in for a new member is very important. Of course, sick leave is a common audit finding, so we try to put that on the list every time we go out. And we, of course, want to share with them how the penalties and interest work to help them know how they can avoid them with timely and accurate reporting, and of course, the post-retirement earnings reporting.
We've got Karen?
Going back to the little A job, in the previous discussion about litigation and reporting and when the clock starts, how does that incorporate, or does it have anything to do with the clock starting on various pieces, perhaps potential litigation?
Well, I can't speak to the litigation. I wasn't included in the conversation this morning, but I can tell you that for this particular process, so when there has been an audit finding and the employer has been placed on notice, that starts a 60-day window, and they have 60 days to provide us the new data, and then a new clock starts on penalties and interest. Regarding litigation, I would have to defer to our legal counsel.
I think the important thing to think about in terms of the audit function and the handoff to member account services is that under the appeals regulations for audits, it's delineated within there these timing requirements for the entity and the sampled members. And so in the general sense, when the final audit report goes back out to the sampled members and the entity who is audited, they have 90 days to do the things that we ask them to do within the report, and also to request an administrative hearing if they decide that they disagree with the audit findings. And so all of this that Christine is talking about is working in parallel with the regulations relating to appeals. So they're on two different tracks, but are happening at the same time. Does that answer your question?
Well, kind of, because what I understood from previous conversations, that the clock starts when the final audit report gets submitted. Am I missing the point then?
Yeah, so under the appeal regulations, currently, the way that it's written is, yes, the clock for the entity and the sampled members to request a hearing would start when the final audit report is issued.
Okay.
And then they would have 90 days to request a hearing if they disagreed with it.
Okay.
If they do not request a hearing within those 90 days, then the findings of the audit report become final.
Okay, okay, thank you.
And then separately, all of the penalties and interest and those types of timings that Christina's talking about would also be concurrently happening.
Okay, thank you.
That's great, thanks, Brianna.
So new for this year from our training team is an outreach to our charter school community. So when charter schools have selected CalSTRS, we immediately reach out and help them understand our laws and make sure that they are ready to start reporting. And we have found that charter schools have a unique reporting issues, and so bringing them together as a community, their payroll analysts together as a community has been very helpful in trying to provide them all the data information that they need. And so we have some dates here that we've put that together, and they have been very popular and very well attended. Lots of good questions being asked and lots of misunderstandings being clarified. And I can tell you that the dates that haven't happened yet are actually full, and we have some waiting lists. So we're very excited to be partnering with our member service centers to be holding regional sessions of training for this group.
So the slide you're showing us is just for charter schools, or is it for?
These are dates just for charter schools, but I'll tell you that these are just in a sampling of dates. We actually have many dates out there for our employers that are just open to the employer community. I just wanted to identify that we are working to try to partner with them to get the accurate data on behalf of the member into the system when it's required.
Yeah, I think this is great. I do feel like, you know, from the districts that I talk to, it just seems like when you go to district offices, it could just be me, so it could just be my area, but it just seems like everyone's just reacting to stuff, right? I mean, there's staffing issues and there's, you know, enrollment. We have enrollment issues in the community colleges, and there's budget deficits, and it's a kind of like crisis mode. And so the idea of to be proactive to try and make sure your reporting is accurate just seems like it's number 25 or falling off the list of priorities. And so I think as much as we can make it as easy and, you know, getting into the districts and getting to where they are instead of having them to have to come to something for us. I know we're working on that. But that's just from my anecdotal experience. It just seems like I would love Christine Briseno to show up in my district office and just take, you know, here's some food, hang out with me for 45 minutes and let me tell you, that's what I would like in an ideal world. I realize that can't always happen, but I think that's the kind of, you know, in whatever way we can synthesize your knowledge into some way that really gets into those offices. Because I was literally just in our office a couple days ago, and you just kind of feel there's just a lot of panic and stuff. And so to me, these are kind of in some ways perceived as sort of boring regulation issues, but to me, they really help us solve problems before they begin. So it's really important. Karen, you have a question?
So in addition to your staff, Christine, then there's the member services team that's there also, so you're all talking with the staff that's signed up? Okay.
Yeah, so we actually partner with Sandy's group at the member service centers, and they do have set in on our trainings, but they are responsible for the member education,
Right.
and we're using the facilities, their training facilities, to train the employer staff.
Right, but at the same time, you are together doing this training? Or is it billed as just for the reporting part of it?
It's just for the reporting.
Okay.
Sharon, going back to your point, what I'd like to just say is, in addition to these in-person sessions, we also hold quarterly employer forums that are open to the entire employer community. That's actually a channel that we've been using to share about progress on our project. We also have the Employer Advisory Committee that happens after Board Week, which we'll be talking to our employers next week to share much of the information we've covered here. And so,
How do we we send an email and say, join us for this?
we do. We have news blasts that go out. We have an employer newsletter where we put the dates, we advertise the dates. And then, of course, we do ping everyone when it's coming and actually ask for topics that they'd like us to talk about. I will say that after spending more than 20 years on the benefit payment side of pensions, this last 18 months has been so enlightening. And so it really isn't my knowledge that I'm sharing with you. This is thanks to the staff in the tower who have been so supportive of my transition to this side of the business. And our trainers are amazing. The staff that do the day-to-day contact with our employers have just been instrumental. And what we've trying to do is improve the relationship with the employers so that we can reduce the barriers to get into accurate reporting. I would say almost all of our employers just want to do the right thing to give us the information that we need that ultimately delivers on the pension promise to our membership. And so I think that this relationship with our charter schools, along with the improved relationship with all of our employers, will go a long way, especially as we transition to a new system that will give us even greater tools to ensure accuracy. So as promised, this is the flow specific to when there is an employer audit. And so in 2015-16, there were 45 final audit reports that had 18 suspected systemic findings. So that work went directly into our little A member account services audit support team, where they did that follow-up, and we were able to receive 12 employer responses that had additional 4,000 impacted members who received corrections on their accounts. And that transferred onto our 16-17 education training calendar, where we held 48 sessions that year. We actually had over 120 employers, that's that community of employers we brought together. 21 of those employers had systemic suspected findings, and that's because we have a rolling year. So there's a few stragglers from both ends of the fiscal year.
So that's 21 districts or
Yes.
employer entities that
Yes.
have systemic findings.
And we had over 1,100 participants. That was actually our highest year of education since we've been counting. So very excited about that achievement. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any additional questions.
Any other questions from members of the, Joy?
This was a helpful presentation, and it's great to see the great teamwork within the organization of working with the audit team. It sounds like a really smooth transition, handing things off to the little A audit team, and then doing some follow-up with the training. And then also, I love the idea that you're taking advantage of our member service centers to also just get, get out of the building and go talk to people face to face. So I just wanted to thank you and your team. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to just say, Christine, I feel like this is a good example. I feel like you listened to what we wanted, and your presentation provided that in a very clear and succinct way. So I just give you kudos for that. And to the team that's maybe watching upstairs, appreciate all the work that you guys do, because you're the unsung heroes that interact with people day to day, and we know how hard that can be sometimes. So, and I will talk to you offline about some ways I would love for you to help down in LA. We need it. So Mr. Investment Chair is helping me ask for what I need. So I'm going to do that. I can do that as the Chair of Benefits and Services. So I'm going to do that. So anyway, but thank you, and thank you to the staff. So great. All right. And Andrew, your Executive Officer report.
Sure. I just have a couple of things that I wanted to highlight. First, the latest round of the routine reports have been posted to the Teachers Retirement Board website. We talked last year about, whenever those reports get posted, I would let you know. And so both the unpaid death benefits and the late interest reports are on the website. The other thing I wanted to talk about was just a quick reminder that in the next Benefits and Services Committee meeting, we'll be talking about the work plan for the 18-19 fiscal year. So just wanted you to be, give that affirmative notice so that you can be thinking about what you would like for us to bring to you next year. One suggestion that I have is relative to the presentation you received from PricewaterhouseCoopers on project governance on Wednesday was around a business transformation. I noticed in going through that presentation a really heavy emphasis on the criticality of change management, change leadership, and business transformation efforts. Under Cassandra's direction, we spun up a business transformation business area in benefits and services, and that's led by Jeff Zimmer. And so I'd be really interested in having him come to talk to you about all the things that we're doing to help ensure a smooth transition to our new system.
That sounds very appropriate, given our conversations in the last few days, so let's make it so.
Okay, I look forward to the conversation
Thanks,
in May,
Andrew.
and that is all that I have.
Oh, sure, Karen.
Andrew, can you just repeat what's on the website now? You said some reporting,
Unpaid death benefits report
okay?
and the late interest reports.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
You good, Karen? Okay. Scott, any information requests?
I did not record any.
I did not have any either. Okay. So we have our draft agenda for May. Andrew, are we planning on adding the online piece then, or what do you, the report?
That's a good, I am
Do you
not,
have sort of-
I haven't heard if that's going to move to May or not yet.
Is the
but-
committee okay with us, because we obviously removed the online piece from this agenda, is the committee okay with us deciding whether it'll be in May or a subsequent committee? We'll keep the committee posted on that.
Okay.
Any other amendments to the agenda? I've got Mr. Keeley.
Andrew, thanks for all your work
Sure.
and being so responsive to sometimes even small requests. I just want to be sure that you know that I'm sensitive to the fact that you have a lot of responsibilities in the Pension Solution Project. And please be sure to come to us in the event that you and your team in Benefits and Services need additional supports or resources. I know you would do that anyway, but I want to put it on the record that I, and I'm sure my colleagues are mindful that you're doing a lot of work on that big project as well.
I'm writing that down.
I'm sure you are.
He's Coach Harry this morning. Ask for what you need, Andrew. Ask for what you need. If you need more, let us know. Great. Any other comments about the draft agenda? Without that, opportunities for statements from the public? Anyone? Great. Then Benefits and Services is adjourned. And what time do you want to, who's, oh yeah, audits. So who am I looking at? Paul. I'll just make an executive decision. How about 10:30? Audits starts at 10:30? Thank you. Thank you so much.